How you doing, Joe?
Good.
Beautiful moon up there, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Right there.
The moon test on it.
Right during the daytime.
Why
Beautiful
didn't you try
sun.
hitting the sun with the laser light? See how hot it is.
Let's see. That looks
Temperature's off the
like.
fucking map.
Did
you find it?
There? 200.
200, jeez.
250 degrees. How about the moon? Looks like 16 degrees. When you shoot in the atmosphere, it gets cooler up there. Well, Joe and I here are doing some studies. We've talked quite often. We read through books. We discuss modern day issues. And both of us are on the same page that we're at a time in history that a lot of our previous assumptions that may have been taught for decades, if not centuries, are under question and should be analyzed a little bit more deeply. I think some of them are related to the medical field, which has obviously spun back and forth over the last 4 months as they've pretty much destroyed or dampened our economy significantly, probably housed up people in loneliness, rates of suicide going off the charts, because a lot of people had a lot on the line. Well, one of the assumptions, and this is a classic example, some of you have seen this before, but most people believe, as taught for 500, 600 years, that this moon is lit from the sun. Now, we're out here in the daytime, we have a temperature gun, and if that moon is lit by this sun, what would happen is the sun's rays hitting the moon would bounce, adding additional heat to the ground. Is that not correct? The sun is producing warmth, it's shooting off to the moon and then back to here. So it would be like a reflection, which would add, and you get any scientists involved, that if you take a warm light source and you use mirrors, and would it not extra apply more heat to the situation? Of course it would. That's basic, undeniable, irrefutable science. Just going quickly here. So right now we're at 92 degrees. Now when we get behind this truck, the moon's right there. We're still in the sunlight. Over here, it's going to go up 95 degrees because this truck is blocking out that moon. That means that moon is impossible in being lit by that sun. Now, that is a major assumption, and that does, again, bring into a lot of other questions astronomically, astronomy, as far as what we believe the world to be like. So long-held assumptions do not necessarily mean that they should not be challenged, and instead of calling them quacky thoughts and irrelevant and decredibilized, they should be looked at as upon opportunities to change what is going on in the world. The same thing with what's happening today with what we consider the race riots and police brutalities, and what is a possible then plan, because all agencies of the space agencies of every single country would have to be in on this. Now look what's happened with con virus. All countries pretty much are in on it. There is an elite ruling class in the world that wants to reshape the world. That does not mean that we cannot fight it. We will not win unless we start questioning long-held suppositions and assumptions that if we get the truth on, like, hey, there was really no virus whatsoever. They say 100,000 died, half of those, if that. I don't even think they've identified the virus strain. Were from people on bike accidents, people that had heart attacks because they were paying them near $40,000 for each one that they produced, and the hospitals are darn near empty. They said they're going to need all these beds, and they never needed the beds. They said our heroes at the front line working hard when the hospitals were laying off people. And hardly any of you can specifically have known somebody and watched step by step them having something that they could specifically say was a virus called COVID-19. You know that's true. A pandemic inspires the images that tons of people are being sick, tons of people are being buried regularly. You have not seen that. It has not spread. And in Japan, where there's 126 million people, they had, 800 something deaths? And they didn't do any lockdown whatsoever. That's a huge transgression upon us as a people, and it tells us significantly what we're in for. And these riots that are getting started, there is a true built-in anger over the years of the injustices that came from the establishment, and that alone will not be enough. It has to be incorporated with the other things that are going on, so we can then have more people from different groups just as equally involved with their own concern of being able to survive. So when we get these questions arising of, well, this is what the doctor said, like Dr. Fauci wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine. March 26th, way before this thing really kind of, headed off in the States, that at the end of the day, we think COVID-19 might be 0.1%, akin to the seasonal flu. Now, more people, so if you take the 100,000 that they say died in the U.S. over the last 4 months, 3 months, there's more people that died of the flu. Why have we not had pandemic policies in place? Because it's all horse crap, and it's designed to take our economy away, to put more power into the government's hands, and that's what these riots are going to be fueled by the media, because all of a sudden the media is only focusing on the rioting and not so concerned about whether people are 6 feet apart wearing their mask or doing other built-up mirages that they played at the hospitals, caught several times with plastic dolls, creating lines, pretending like there's some sort of hyped-up panic. That's terrorism. Our government is terrorizing our people here in this United States, and that should be the charge against all those that have pushed COVID-19. They knew darn well, and the way they did it, all the evidence is right there, and it can be proved. Now, we're fighting eventually a whole entire establishment that had put their credibility on the line. That means all the pundits, which are essentially the sales team for the controllers of the world, which include all of our Congress, all of our governors, most of our mayors, a lot of our police, but not all of them. In the political realm, mostly all of them. And those then have committed crimes. That means our entire government should be seen as defunct. Cooperation minimally only. We wrong on that? We're wrong on the moon again. I ask almost anybody, hey, how's that moon being seen up in the sky? Oh, well, all the scientists told us the sun bounces off of it. This temperature test tells it right here. It is impossible. Now we go behind the truck again, and it warms up because it's blocking that moonlight out. It's only in the moonlight that it ends up getting cooler. That means it's impossible 1 zillion%. That's why it's also really impossible upon close inspection to believe these so-called experts who have told us to wear masks and stay apart from each other and close in our churches and businesses. Now, folks, you may not like the riots, most people don't, but at least it's some aggressive action towards some injustice that is real still. Now, how much rioting do people do? How many marches do people do? Do you think there's no point to march back as they drain our resources to try to possibly then force a vaccine? And the next one, since they're unveiling all of it, might be the one that really harms us a lot more. I know you may not believe this, but there's no efficacy between the flu shot and overcoming that sickness of flu or preventing it. A lot of times you got to look what's not available. And they have not done enough effective tests of those that have taken the flu and not. Why? Because they know that it would take into their pocketbook. Now you're going to go ahead and turn yourself over to an industry so we can get pricked and prodded and hurt? Or we're going to sit there and keep our sanity and our common sense about us? Which means we don't do silly, insane stuff because the government and some lab coat said to do it. We question the motives and we really objectively investigate what the points are. We don't ignore them any longer. To ignore them is to keep within the spinning web of a design that almost all of us are going to look back if we didn't do anything and say, holy crap, how did we allow this to happen? Well, that choice is what you decide to believe in. Many of our held traditions and beliefs need to be questioned. A lot of them are going to hold true enough. Some of them are going to change. Just like they started slowly 16 years after 3 towers came down from 2 planes. That was the reason stated for all the usage of our military, your taxpayers and our kids going over and fighting wars so they can pad the pocketbooks. Not for our freedom, sadly enough. Although the nobility there, we like to have that noble attitude be carried over to actually protecting our freedoms. And that would mean an encouragement towards any soldier, any member of the family or friend to say that they fight for the U.S. Because there is a chance that they could maybe at one point try to put UN troops in. And I know you don't want to believe this one either, but these little black boxes up here, those are 5G 60 gigahertz already tested by real scientists. to carry the signals around instead of putting cables on them. What this is going to do is shoot it everywhere, and it's a honing beam that can cause shortness of breath, fever, and other similar symptoms. It's not on at the moment, but if they do kick it on, all of a sudden they'll say it's the second wave. It's time to start a live kind of thinking about what's going on, because when they pulled the plug, that means they're going all the way. Even what's going on right now, they like it. It's no secret that they didn't take down the video of the guy with the knee on his neck. Of course they're going to continue to encourage people to riot and whatnot. I certainly damn hope they don't hurt regular homes and regular citizens. Not a whole lot of heart loss or discomfort if they were burning down capitals, because we've been betrayed at the greatest and highest levels. They're all guilty of treason. So that's going to bring back a lot of tensions at one point. Now we either decide to go ahead and live or try to live through, because it could be genocide on the line, and go with the government lies, go with the media establishment lies. Now, what kind of life is that really going to produce? Look what they've done already. If you think that there's some good end result, I think we could look at all the pain and suffering. You look what happened in 9/11. Was that good for our country? Look what happened already here. Again, as a plot designed, prepared, and planned and programmed way in advance of what's going on. The giant events almost always are not coincidences, they're planned. So if you're going to go along with that line, there will be regret. Or the reason that they try to consistently fool us is they know there is a power that's deeply built into a strong country. That means they're going to do it incrementally. And they can't get away with it unless they have us fooled. That's why they do the deceptions. If we're not fooled, then they aren't going to be able to get away with it. The only way we remain fooled and remain exploited is if we keep our mouths shut and we have a compliance towards these rules and their story, which is nothing but a bovine excrement filled to the top of the frickin' lid. Over and out. Thanks, Moon, for helping. Because you do prove a main point that big, large, what people think are facts, well, upon inspection, and it's always those gray areas, because can you go to that moon? No. You're relying on the government to give you every photo and every information about it. So governments across the world work together at their top governmental levels and the rich families. And that's what they've done on COVID, because they want to have population control. So you can't have freedom, you can't have thought, and you are completely subjected to do exactly what they're told, and you're not going to have a day in court ever again. Now, unless you think that's a safe way to go ahead and produce freedom or prosperity, and if you do think that, well, I hope that you step out of the conversation. Have a great night, everybody. Happy May 31st.